你在这个热的啊，水呢？
也没劲，这种别在，
这都几个了？
其实你嘛，其实也是些嘛这个。
这些东西呢？对，找到看。
怪不得。
我们他这么那么的。
是。
教育路你设计成刚刚产生基本盘。
是。
那个你们这个是要不得是第一样在考。
我这个没得就是。
Andrew and Claire are going somewhere.
Andrew and Claire are away.
Yeah. So this session, but what is it? Okay, yep, she came on some gesture.
So we should do the prayers, maybe, and we'll at least have Michael show on page 2. Thus I have heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the 5 skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son of a lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The 5 skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness. Having no characteristics, they are inborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell on the 3 times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not to suffer. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the calm perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the venerable Sharipati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Roso quella che ci tardi, e la giudice Roda cero nemo, legge ciaro rozeji, mare meze lumenyu, cene giunze la rena, dene taci sacio tasu, yede luzo jase tuyo, chada jada juni jede, Nalo minse nyambe yangad, Arabazanadi, Arabazanadi, Arabazanadi. Cheche Cheravazeti, Nalo Timamagara. Kada Tinju Julu Tobaye, Lodre Kobina Tabuso.
Short mandala offering on page 16. Saji
Eje Ruje Medoran, Jera Lije Nide Gimade, Sanje Jingo Miruaye, Roge Nada Yina Jeparaye. Lama Namba Jinaje, Juga Kala Jinze Jete, Jada Zambe Duje Zemama, Zaje Juje Chaba Toso, Murana Mendana Gane Atayame.
Refuge prayer on page 22. Sanje Chodang
Soje Chonala, Janjo Barbo Dane Josoji, Dage Chuche Jibe Sonamji, Rala Benjere Sanje Ruparayo. Chodang Soje Chonala, Janjo Barbo Dane Josoji, Dage Chuche Jibe Sonamji, Rala Benjere Sanje Ruparayo.
Sanje
Chana Toje Chana La Janjo Bardo Dane Josoji, Dage Chuje Jibe Sonamji, Rala Benjere Sanje Ruparayo.当我在学给双臂长节呢，这个长节呢，理解大把关系呢，领导人们那种人，早上工作都没办法的，没个高才得看就差的有些，第一哪里讲，领导人们那种人是， the Maram Sujura Yodek, Susujura Yodek, and then Masa Dibatan, and then Geotomi Pentaka Yodek, Suju Yomo, so Meba Sovare, Pajongres, the Yodan Dinayam, and then Yanda Sanji ki Karaskuta, Dibara Nyom Jodan Korea, Tachini Malabosu, Zabayato Te, Tumarchini, Soso Betuchini, Yamores, Tenetini, Soso Jula Yodiaki, Nasa Dibatan, Mani, Kiaton Yud, Tadaba Yodiak, Yamont, so, and then Sanji Sumana Shin, Soso Betuchini, Majon and Jina, Majon Ina, and the Karacheva, Soso Rani, and Mingro Royana, and the Mingro, and Koan and Metambo Cottage Mato, and the Henry Mares, the name Marozo, Sosogi, Masaki Dibata, Sosajuli, and Yumosa Pajamaina, and then Mandroni Dendrolia, Genroyata, Dendroni Dendroya, and then Rubomotapa, Jetava Toyata, Untangible Toyak, the Dagi. The Yan Rajiboyes at the next swing.
So verse 19, we'll be discussing on verse 19 again here, which is what is the purification of body? It is clearing away vile actions and reactive emotions through the essential meanings of the fully awakened Buddha's teaching. But if you make no efforts, you go to the lower realms. It's clearly mentioned here this importance of making an effort and following the teachings of the Buddha, by following the teachings of the Buddha. So what it says here is now, when we talk about here, clearing away the purification of the body, and it is what is meant by purification of the body is here really referring to clearing away the vile actions or the reactive emotions. In other words, one's karma and afflictions need to be purified. So this karma and our reflective emotions must be purified in accordance with the teachings given by the Buddha. All this negative karma that we may have accumulated by means of one's afflictions from the beginningless time up until now, if we do not make an effort to cleanse or purify those negative karma, as well as one's afflictions, then what will happen to us is one will fall into lower realms and will never have a chance to free ourselves from cyclic existence. We will trap ourselves within the bondage of cyclic existence. So all those negativities, if one follows the teachings of the Buddha, engaging in the practice of the teachings of the Buddha, one will then be able to gain a rebirth through fortunate realms, to the advanced level of fortunate realms, in a very near future, without waiting for a long period of time, one will be able to attain nirvana, or the liberation and state of enlightenment.
That issue at the Liu on the Jina, or Sakachana, Liu on the Jina, Liu Jiva, the Jamas, Liu Jiva, or the Divan, Liu Jiva, the Jamas, the Katun Mata, and Divanaya, says Jiva, the
So if you have a commentary, if you look at the chapter 8, and it has a detailed explanation of how you purify. The practice of purification is given detail in this chapter 8.
Tan degi tsuwa mozo dipa da nyumon jaya dire, dipa da nyumon jaya. Dipa da nyumon jaya sayada, soso juri yadaya dipa da nyumon jaya, ten tsuwa jini soyo go. Jazan nambi shunga na ma to soyo bekaraya, panja inanda, ranja inanda, to asma soyo bekaraya. Ane soso juri yadaya ki panja kanda kanyi batang. Ane soso juri ya panja de pangala, ane kari bati sodo running jurjani nang chegeta nambishongita karsakare chimrada ene mena tere mato rana thadi bishata jurya ane bishata tani musana wata tene chedewena ane rang rishira penta mere chaza tene kende dipata nyumo jonsiyate sozo jurya deyake sozo runa sabe dipajaya na sozo Joton Matadapa, Rajulia, Lutan Timachido, Yodia, the Kodo Majan de Chalasoa, or Kandaga Numogi, Tasodi, and Jamari, Palmari, yes, the next one.
So here, when we talk about purification of one's karma and negativities, karma and as well as one's afflictions, we're talking about the karma or negativity that is karma, negative karma that's accumulated by oneself, and negative afflictions that is within us. This is what we need to purify, and this accumulation of negative karma, one's own accumulation negative karma should be identified, and one's own affliction must be identified, which is to be purified. And so when we so it is therefore when we speak about uh, uh, what is to be abandoned and what is to be accomplished, what is to be adopted, we're talking about abandonment of one's own negativities and achievements of one's own quality. That is what we're talking about. We're not talking about someone else's, negativity. We're not talking about someone else's negative thoughts and emotions, which is to be purified, which will not be happen either. Even if we make an effort to do that, we are unable to purify the negativities of others, nor we can, you know, purify the affected emotions of other beings. So, what is meant by purifying negative deeds or the karma and afflictions is referring to one's own negative karma and one's own afflictions. So, therefore, it is from beginningless time up until now, we possess all these negative thoughts and emotions, as such as anger, hatred, jealousy, and so on, are within us. It is always with us, like follows us like a shadow, and without exceptions, without a break. So therefore, those are the negative deeds, negative emotions, and the actions driven by those negative emotions need to be purified and identified, and which is and those identified negativities need to be purified.
Yamato san tangu ji kari na soso juriye dewe ngasa ki dipa tang soso juriye de nyumo tiso de meba zora soso rani ki soso shu jini soso rani ki beti jini meba soso kaya ji mato soso rani ki jiba ki shu jini meba soso kaya ji mato rani lule jini sheda jigi ranju ki nyumo tang dipa meba soso siya de yuami ji jire.
So here it is important to understand that when speaking about our negativities, it is the purification of negativities is done by one's own self, one's own effort. One's own effort is needed to purify one's negative karma and negative thoughts and emotions. And because this none of other beings can purify one's negativities and one's karma or one's afflictions.
데모도 문제 때문에 나타나는 바도 지와이네야. 이메도 준비되라니네야. 너무 잘 도지. 근데까지 들면서 초사는 담고도 상 지로를 가지러서 되는 데가 되고 되나지기 좀 되는 데가 지주 두제 소리네야. 매니저는 답을 나한테 답을 하나를 시켜봐자스. 도세 매니저는 답을 나한테 그래. 근데 답을 둬야 되잖아. 그래서 제가 그랬는데 도시는 손도 앉아서 문제 때문에 나다고 제와네야. 좀 말하니기 모아서 산지가 라니기 또 메시지니 산지야나. 근데 디지털 마이나야. 지금 답이 나한 때고. 근데 답을 둬야 되잖아. 그래서 제가 또 손도 안되는데 뭐냐서 되게 말하고.
So, if you look at how the Buddha actually purified his negativities and become complete enlightened beings, perfect enlightened beings. Sorry, it's because Buddha had first generated a bodhicitta, and then underwent tremendous amount of rigorous practice of accumulation of merits and purifications for 3 great countless eons. It is therefore Buddha gained the state of complete enlightenment, and so it is thus Buddha has stated that I have shown a path to liberations, but whether this liberation is can be achieved by oneself or not is dependent upon one's own effort and one's own practice.
네, 좀더 좀인데 산지스 바레디나야 마라도 줄에 여디야게 디바도 녀모도데 가지고 되게야 아니면서 좀도 자 대에 마라도 줄에 디바다 녀모도 쓰면 봐서는 마라도 라게 그리잖니 매바서 보여지마다 신을 가져서 매바드네 지레.
So Buddha has gained complete state of enlightenment and by purifying his negativities. If Buddha had an opportunity or Buddha had an way of purifying others' negativities, he would have done. But however, it's not so. One's own negativity must be negativities accumulated by oneself must be purified by oneself. So therefore, it is for us whether or not to purify one's negativities and gain liberations.
이내 다트메도 좀 되게 많은 소리야. 가르나도 제가 디바 빵그래, 녀마 빵그래, 녀마들 다 빵그래, 디바들 다 빵그래. 다무 소리다. 빵이 빵도 당신이 말고 되리. 다 대에 무슨 나래지 소소라니 같아 제니. 아니 그래 제니 소소 줄에 예비 마사가 디바도 녀마서 다음에 가서 또 생각하라.
So now what Buddha has done is, now Buddha has actually guided us, given us a pure guidance of how we can purify our negativities, how we can purify our afflictions. And Buddha has shown us, in other words, unmistaken path to state of liberation and state of enlightenment. By following this unmistaken path, one should put an effort to one's own accumulated negative karma and negative emotions.
장바 장주 서바 친구 취지다 되는 디바 제시 서바 지지 좀 주로스네 디바 자와나 아니 니부터 시 사이버니 아니 디바 자와나 디바 다야 되게 그래서 다 못을 아니 산지 된다지 못하게 당하지 말고 그래.
So, in this verse, it is the purification of the body, and it is clearing away vile actions, which is referring to the negative actions or karma, negative karma, and the reactive emotions. The first here, according to the commentary, it's the detailed explanations of how one can clear away or how we can purify one's vile actions or negative actions. So it is written by following the sutras of Chuji the sutras of the teachings of the four dhammas, where it talks about how one can purify one's negativities.
단니부터 시대에 고시하는 문제가 남보데 가서 conditions 맞네. 넘버 순지부터 세야지. 니 condition부터 니바야라도부터 된지부터 다 취시하고 아니 다 말에 취되면도 취지도 없이들 취시해서 그래서 산지기다 비바 정화라 아니 넘버 순지부터 니 condition부터 니바야라도부터 된지부터 어디 시대 한소가 나가야 되잖아. 아니
So, so according to this, where it says, how do we purify? What kind of practice that is more effective to purify one's negativity is to the practice of purifications with the four forceful applications of antidotes. And those are the practice that actually purify one's negativities, such as application of antidotes of what we call is reliance, antidotes of actual application of antidotes, and antidotes of regret or the remorse, antidotes of committing not to engage in such a deed in the future. So those are the four kinds of application that which need to be applied when one is actually engaging in the practice of purification.
단 넘버 순지 봐서 지난 넘버 순지 봐서 근데 소소의 시작의 뒷바퀴 뒤로 넘버에 순지 봐서 매버서 와서 그래 순지 봐서 제가 뒤에 내가 그래서는 매기 리처도 다른 주바 뭐가 있으면 좋다 손도 다 조조 소소가 마사게 뒷바 때려야 아니 주바 추치고 지야들
So here now four out of those four, the one purification antidotes to antidotes, the application of antidote is regret or remorse. It is very important because without having regrets and remorse in one's past negative deeds, then one may engage in such a deed again. If you have a genuine regret and remorse, and such the deed that one may have done in the past, then the power of regret will not, let oneself engage in such actions again. So therefore, the antidote of regret or remorse is an important part of purification practice.
다 매기 레리아 주바 제와라 소소다 지금 뭐야 아무도 뭐지서도 소소 쳔디 소소 제반에 다다 바다 쳔디 하는 제반에 다다 바다 소소 쳔디 나네 소소를 뇌지 보내더니 매기에 가르쳐도 마르고니 매기에 가르쳐도 예지고니 매기에 가르쳐도 소소 차선 제 두고 있는 말에 소소 두고서 진주지고 소소가 다다 고송이 자와 상에 니타로마데 근데 예도 상고 소소 고송도니 자와는 막가를 가르쳐도 소 생대가 나가서 가서 투도지서 도 상하다 진주지 제게 정말.
So it is first Before having regret and remorse, first of all, one needs to recall all those negative deeds that one may have done. In this lifetime, of course, we may not be able to recall the negative deeds that we may have done in the past, but when we speak about the past, we're talking about beginning this time. Obviously, it is not possible for us to remember or to recall all these past deeds, or all these past deeds of beginning this time. So one try to recall the deeds, negative deeds of body, speech, and mind of this life, what we have done. By recalling all of this, then one should think of that. Just as I have engaged in negative deeds of the body, speech, and mind in this life. Similarly, I may have done, even worse in my, past life, from the beginning of this time up until now. And whatever that negative deeds that I may have engaged through body, speech, and mind, you know, I will have a great regret and remorse, and 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 committing to purify all those negative deeds and negative karmas.
the name to the Shinju and the social jury, Nemo be wanking, Langibambochi, Mishi be wanking with the Limbochi. And then Bami be wanking also was on Jangibambochi, so Cindy on the Joanne. And to the Yaji Jenny, that mean Cindy on the Joanne was on Jang and Dijo, the next Jewish also. And that the change to you with the day to the bus in the go, young and pale red in a small origin. The name that the what of Chimbo, the name child is of that, the day you gave Martini, a challenge pure nata, Montpellier, Chivachima data, Nasong Motor, Jessa, Dressation, Peter Hammond, Kadaki, Tony, Sanaki, Diana. Then I do that also. Jiwa maji kene jiwa or tawa ine tene jiwa thoma me banda da ba yung so ta jiwa ngame na so yung ne tane jiwa sambo ya ko du ju de jiwa nge ba pa na ba de du yo ri ro o tene indu sende on jiwa sambo ta nge ba de no ne mo jiwa nge ba de mo ba du yo ri ta di ni jiwa ngama na se tene je du yo ri tene indu jiwa thoma banda da ba de le nge ba mo shi du ju che ta tene jiwa thoni so that they Masha Bata, the next to how I know. Then Jivachimana so that they dribble, Nami dribble to him, but no reason, the data. And the name to that, the Davaton and Masaka Divaria, then the Divatanagia, the Chuni Dribble do Sunny, and the bear, two contos want about Jivachi, the Pedra Jaguar, two contos want about Jubatama, Jubapish, Chimbo, New Hall, Betty, Juba, Shuchimaji, or Tosoma.
So if you look at ourselves at this time, I mean this life, we have engaged in all those negative deeds, body, speech, and mind, not in our day-to-day life. If not bodily, we may have done through speech. Not speech, we may have done through mind or the mental accumulation of negative karma. It's very, you know, it's automatically happened to us as we have this negative tendency due to our negative tendency that we have, you know, uh, instantly that we will have discomfort by looking at someone. Instantly, we're having some kind of opinion with regard to someone. Instantly, having a judgmental, becoming making a judgment with regard to someone, and so on. Are all actually accumulation of negative karma through one's mind. So therefore, if you look at ourselves, of course, we may have we also uh, engage in a positive deeds or a virtuous deed. But if we were to compare uh, the negative deeds and positive deed that we have done in this life, that the greater that the negative deeds are greater amount than our positive deeds for sure. Similarly, we may have engaged in negative positive karma or positive deeds in our past, but if we were to look at our compare our positive karma, positive deed with the negative deeds, our negative deeds are far more greater than our positive deeds. So therefore, uh, uh, we should think of that. If I really look at myself at this point, if I remain in the same situation without making an effort to change myself, I'm very certain that I will take a rebirth in the lower realms. Because when I look at my deeds, the deeds of the participation minds, the negative deeds of participation minds are far more greater than the one's positive deeds. So therefore, I will go to make. I will have no doubt, but to go to but to take a rebirth within the Lord realms. So therefore, one should have a great regrets and remorse. It's a very strong regrets and remorse from the depth of one. It is not just by saying I have a great regret and remorse just by expressing it, but one should, from the depth of one's heart, as if that if one has one had drunk this poisonous liquid or poisonous water without knowing, and when you come to when you realize that, oh, I have drunk poisonous water or poisonous liquid, then how much regret that we may have. Why I did that? Why I shouldn't have done this and that. All kind of the regrets and remorse will rush into our mind. Similarly, once one should look at those negative deeds that one have done as poisons that you have actually taken, and the poisons are in you. So you need to detoxify all those poisonous that is in your system.
저다 메게 레드리아 디바리아 무서 아니 주바치 그 색깔이나 또 소소를 내빌리지도 저다 디바 생이 되게 소소리 남이 그 디베데 동해지 트레모도 동해지 소소를 무거워 차려요 저다 소소를 무거워 동해 그래서 뭐 단계때 드문도 넣으셔 회사시가 되는 거지 배는 말도 내가 그 집에 그래 소소 넣으신데 그죠 소소를 야트가래 니발이 보나 아니 인조저 어느 가지 개체도 많이 다다이 링글 많이 다다이 다마데 제가 가진에 되는지 자제 다마들이 니바들이 다서 가진 많이 다다이 배사시는 거 좀 저도 어떤지 디바스는 되게 소소리야 아니 디베디 동네도 줘요 제가 동네에 맞서 먹어봐 소소를 먼저 그 디베지 디바 주는 전에 아니면 디바지나 소소를 동네에 그렇지 근데 디바지야 되는 것도 배사시 하스네 디바지 그 디도서
So the reason why we have to have this such a great regret and remorse with regard to one's negative deeds is because without this regrets and remorse, as I mentioned earlier, that we will again engage in such a deed in the future. So now we know that negative deeds that you have done will be harmful to oneself. It may harmful to others directly, but in the long run, there's consequence that you have will more harmful than the harmful that you have inflicted upon others, harm that you have inflicted upon others. So, so therefore, that the suffering that you will have as a result of one's negative deeds will be very intense. So as we all have this, genuine aspiration to overcome suffering and achieve happiness, and why do we make an effort to stop the cause which give rise to our suffering, which is our negative deeds? And so it is the mistaken kind of actions. For instance, that if you have done something that is mystic at your workplace, then you will be punished. In the same manner, so negative deeds are the mistaken deeds. And as long as you have engaged in these mistaken deeds, the consequence will be faced, consequence will be experienced by the individual who actually did this mistaken, who actually engaged in these mistaken deeds, wrong deeds, in other words.
다들 있어서 계획이 내가 뭐도 있지는 소리 양소서 주바 제주만 소리 아 소서 아 좋아지 그래 가지 그래 제가 양 계획이 주바 제와는 아 계획이 되는 만 양도 그러고 제가 되는데 매계획이 되는 디바서를 소서 주바지 소소기 계획이 되는 지는 저 선물도는 더더러 소서 가와고 어떻게
So then here, if one finds that one has done something that is positive, virtuous deed, one should have great, rejoice in one's positive deeds, those which will then encourages oneself to engage further, positive deeds or the virtuous deeds. One should never have a regret and remorse regarding one one has done something positive deeds. One should not have, because if one has a regrets and remorse, then whatever the virtue that or the merits that one may have accumulated by means of one's positive deeds will be declined.
그들의 기회들이 소소를 가를 더 지고나 대체 더 가지고 와라. 매기회들이 소소를 통해 좀 도와줘서 소소 대체 되기 바쳐서 동의 문제가 이비차니 하는 소소 대비 대체 중에 그 저들아 소소 대 소소 분두나 들어요. 아니 도와줘 가지 소소 문제가 통해 이바다데 전제가 되니 저 디바산나 들어요. 아니 저가지야 나가지야 도스래.
Because the virtuous deed or the wholesome deeds are the result, one will experience happiness. The happiness will be the result of one's wholesome deeds, and suffering is the result of one's negative deeds. So, as we all long to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings, why don't we put an effort to engage in the positive deeds, which is a cause of one's happiness. So it's therefore whenever we engage, whenever we find ourselves, whether one is engaging in a virtuous deed or whether one is about to engage in a virtuous deed or whether one has completed engaging in a virtuous deed, one should always have a great rejoice in one's own deeds, so that this will allows oneself to engage in a further engagement of positive deeds.
저도 배는 것도 지금 맨날 찍으라는 야고 찍으나 하늘 대로니 가고 차도 매직으라는 두자들 막아 찍어도 제가 야고 찍어도 소도 야고도 소도 되고요. 대 소도 되고 봐도 찍어 되려면서 하는 가고 지야다. 가지고 매직이라는 두자도 소도 문제도 뭐 되려야 다 가서 막아 찍어도 된다는 거래.
So it's just like that when someone is nice to you and we like that person, right? If someone is not nice to oneself and someone who is being mean to oneself and one become dislike with that person. So that entails that we want happiness and we do not want suffering. So therefore one should look for some cause that give rise to happiness.
그 주님 나자데 기회를 때니 되게 대칭인 거예요. 몇 개월 되게 동행인 거예요. 동행 아니는 뭐가 아니면 대처 아니는 뭐가 아니면 된다고 되더니 제가
It is all law of cause and effect. The cause, the result will be the result will be will be the production of the cause that is whatever the cause that one have accumulated. If it's whether it is be it as a negative or a positive, the result will always be will be produced in accordance with the cause. If the cause is positive, the result will be positive. If the cause is negative, the result will be negative. So therefore, not one should by knowing that, and one should not really engage in the deeds that really becomes a negative cause.
단지 미개를 저거 지원이나 되네 내가 가능성 다 그래서 중으로 단지 빼는 것이나 다다 로그에 미시 빼는 것도 지당라니 빠래지 큰들 것이 차니고 제당 기재 세상 있는 데까지 가르치는 거기서 나가는 것이 차 얘는 나가는 차니 소소기 노트이 바지 시니 소소 다들 들고도 상 주바를 지었다는 바저분들이야 인기 가지들한테 시에 있는 데가 있는 제가는 들고도 공하다지 써있나 어느 바로 보면 되게 그말 두자 계속 걸어 큰일 줄로고 사대하게 공항에 받을 거 신호로 건다를 신호도 와 대시에서 하는 바저분들 소소를 저 어느 동해 동해서 그래다 저걸 저걸 넣어야 돼 거기에 창조하려고도 와 대나지기 소상마사 디바를 주변 슈치고 전에서 마사 디바 되게 아니 뭐 만나면 지금 좀 대내지가 잘 놓여서
So if one have regrets in one's negative deeds, then the negative deeds that one have committed will not give rise to its fruition. It will be, in other words, the suffering that one will not experience the suffering as a result of as a result of one's negative deeds in the past, right? So let's take an example here. Let's say whether this example is correspond to this practice of remorse and regret and remorse. But that one thing that I want to mention about here is that if you have done something bad to another person, in other words, one person, and then that person will have animosity towards oneself, and that individual will have a vision of retaliations, because we have done something bad to that person. But at the same time, you realize that you have done something bad to that person, and if you go and make an apology, and if the person accepts your apology, then his motivation of retaliating to retaliations towards retaliation will be subsided. It will be disappear. It will no longer in his continuum. And with this kind of stuff, with this kind of practice, with kind of deeds, then you will not have the result. Because if you have not if you did not make any apology or make that person different from retaliations, and you will be facing again consequences of what you have done to that person. So if you apologize, if you are an apologist person and accept that apologies, then retaliation will not happen. If you retaliate, then there will be suffering, right? Suffering for himself and that of oneself and that other person as well. So this is how the practice of regret and remorse works.
다들 니바데 니보코도 주도 세야들에 나버서 주도 되는지 니보코도 주도 세야 니보코도 주도 세야데 가지고도 쉬어나지래 소소기 샤야 디바카나 카이면 다다데 니보코니 디바샤지 근데 이만은 다단데 쇼는 뭐지나 아니 담보데 도대 상관에 때문에 되어서 주 상무소 도대 상관에 때문에 되어 다하게 되게 주죠. 도지 주고 논란이 아니 도대 측들다 레바단 잡아도 로바다 다만 도대 그 증상모들아 소소 절로야다 런지지야다 와 된다 제와이나 근데 맞다 그래서 제사님 보고도 좀 떠서야 근데 디바문에 더 샤야 다바지에 님보들이야 아니 님보고도 좀 떠서 제사 소소마사 디바 대야고 좀 어쩌가 제텔에 주세 슈친부에 좀 터니 엔데 다 마샤바 이나 소소 모바리야 대인들의 동에 매단 반영고에서 대 엔단단이 시작하고도 선배가 쏘고 다바지고도 엔터 다야기 체도 또 문이 소소하게 전도될 자모 라바타 엔장주에서 공부하다 공부하니 공부 간다지 제가 있는 타나지 차트야 연자표야 아니 최대한 고아져봐 근데 니크루쇼와 아니 저 정보를 집어넣어 처음에 다야군조도 주가 있는데 마탐볼에 집어넣어 있는데 간다지 제가 있는 데 상관데 아니 니모군이 또 세트로 그래.
So then, next is actual application of antidotes towards one's negative deeds. Is the practice, whatever the practice one may have, one may be doing, because you already have a great regrets and remorse with regard to your negative deeds, right? So having this great regrets and remorse, now just having great regrets and remorse alone will not purify your negative deeds, the negative deeds that you have committed in the past. Just having regret and remorse alone is not become an ample practice of purifying one's negative deeds. On the basis of this regret and remorse, what we should do is then we engage in the practice, actual practice of purification. Such, in according to this commentary, it says reading the sutras, and then also it says, according to the text, it says like the diamond sutras, diamond cutter sutras, and so forth. And so then not only that, but also, practice of bodhicitta, practice of meditating on emptiness, and also one's practice of prostrations, making inevitable offerings, and making offerings to the sanghas, and engaging in practice of generosity with regard to the poor people or needy people, and all of this will become an actual antidote for one's practice of purifications. In order to become a strong practice of purifications, as we mentioned earlier, first of all, one needs to have this great regrets and remorse. On this basis, one engages in the practice. Dedicating this practice towards one's purification of one's negative deeds will really become effective.
Pena kazi mozo ke chuanaji doje se me gondi wonte chewaina doje se me gondi ser samta doje se me cheja ta deni ani yeja de wate mozo ni bo ke chu to te kana yeja to ma se yo ka tu de o de na ji ke kandri ne ni bo ke chu to se ate so de ma ta ta de ani be shaya ke che to so ke de ji ni bi jawa ka ri ta wa na de ni bo ke chu to.
So, on the basis of having this regret, then whatever practice that one may do will become actual antidotes towards one's negative deeds. As we discussed during our previous sessions, the practice of Bodhisattva. If one engages in the practice of Bodhisattva by meditating, by visualizing the Bodhisattvas on the crown of one's head, and reciting mantras of 100-syllable mantras, will then really become actual antidotes towards one's negative deeds.
다들 샤약지도 그 자와지 땅고로만 제가 다들 디바의 샤고도 상배더니 자와지 땅 그가 진도대 상로에 있는다 장족세 봉에 다들 자와 상배의 땅으로 어디 자와데 아니 거기에 디바 샤는 니보다도 로래.
So when speaking about applying antidotes, the antidotes should become a direct remedy towards that particular negative deeds. Because here, just as we mentioned earlier, that just having a regret and remorse alone will not purify one's, will not become a strong purification of one's negative deeds. On the basis of having this great regrets and remorse, and one then engage in the actual purification practice, which is actual application of antidotes towards one's negative deeds.
단지 송바데 니발이 라르도 비토스 니발도 비토스야 돼. 니발이 라르도 비토스야 돼. 다소 친제 니발 메제스 비토스인데 다소 당이 응아들들 제셔도 주셔야 회사샤스. 단지 마샤바드네 하는 등도 샤고도 샤바지니 님보고 주도 나는지. 당이 친제들가 니발주님 메제스입니다. 다른 지능은 디바치는 매체에서 자원을 받는 매체에서 소소가 지 샤발로 되는 동생 주로가 어떨래야 하는 란도도
So then, here now, you have great regrets and remorse. On that basis, you have engaged in actual application of antidotes, the practice of actual application of antidotes. Then the next is not only that, now, since I have identified all my negative deeds and have a great regrets and remorse, I have done my purification practice with regard to my accumulated negative deeds in the past. Now, I should never engage in such deeds again. Will be the third one, which is also one of the powerful practice of application of antidotes.
어디네 말은도 응외리아 집에 디바사스베는 뭐바 디바사야 되게 그 TV 거리야 아니 소소게 사람들 따뜻해 하고 다음에 디바지에 드마스 무슨 집에지야다 근데 디바데 샤야치도 나사트발에 소소 자와서 말까지 지고 근데 다른 소리가 치마다나 노좀 이제 디바 마사상 예선지를 배기지 모래.
So as soon as you find, whenever one finds that one has actually done something that is harmful to others or oneself, or something that is negative, then one should immediately have a great regrets and remorse, and then seek, and then proceed it to the practice of actual antidotes or application of actual antidotes or practice.
단지 님보 넘버스지부터 세야데 마사 디바리에서 주베지야들도와 님보고도 주부터 세야데 디바데 다야게 체도 소소 자고도 장지야 자주세요 보안들도와 아니 니발란도부터 되는 친지 디바지 미 상미지에서 도세들도와.
So now here, this has a very, if you look at this for application of antidotes, it's a very proper sequence here. It's set up in a very proper sequence in this, the training of anthology or the Siksa Samuccaya, where it says first, one must have a regret and remorse with regard to one's negative deeds. Having this regret and remorse, one then purify one's negative deeds. And once you have purified all the past negative deeds, then one is committing not to engage in such deeds again.
다다마들이야 총그룹으로 다지는 대지도 세야 돼. 대지도 세다 되게 디바 샤와나 아니 디바 샤자고요. 대치가 왔는데 지금 그래서 신을 틀었는데 명아이 수만하게 당연히 도지스면 거기 나한테 누구네 저러서 저도 그려서 저도 루이서 저러서 저도 저서 뭐래 아니 저유사다 그래. 정부에 지어라 저유사다 저유사다니 저승가 그래. 저서 지금 제발지 산지 고조다 주고요 비디오고요서 아니 배 저유사다 근데 되려라니기니 되려 정도제 정도세야데 로레 와 산지구 주구주 그리고 소나 닌타바니가게 근데 레테제니 로제레 정도서래 제가 되려 안 땡기도 어서데 아니 디바이스 샤와라 땡치바지 지금 되려 디바 샤와이나 안 디바 다야리야 안 럭치와 요소도 되는데 땡기도 어서야 돼 정도들.
So then here, according to this, the Siksa Samuccaya, then the fourth application of antidote is reliance, which is reliance upon taking refuge in teachers and generation departure. So here now, if one engages in the purification practice by taking refuge in rituals and setting or visualizing the three jewels as an object of refuge. Just as when we engage in the practice of Bodhisattva meditations, prior to proceeding oneself in the actual meditation of the Bodhisattvas, we have this refuge verse of taking refuge in three jewels and generation of bodhicitta, right? Similarly, here now, when we are engaging in this practice of purifications, if one takes refuge in three jewels from the depth of one's heart, and by visualizing, in other words, by visualizing the refuge. Object of refuge, or the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Then take refuge in those three jewels from the depth of one's heart. Then this purification practice will become a very, very powerful.
놀라베 산이 두고쇼 서군조선을 때는 자주스네 하다지스 자주내랑 거기 자주스네 하다지 그 도지스는 뭐 때문에 제와나 군조선을 때서 세제다게 다고 자주내랑 거기 자주스네 하다지스 근데 세제담지 아니 하다가 저 자주기 거만에 거기 뒤에도 아니 상라는 얘기 산주고 오늘 제가 이해해서 된다기 로제 친구지 제오는 상도 안 돼요고요.
So then this taking refuge in teachers will be then be followed by the generation of bodhicitta, right? So when taking the bodhicitta, it says if you follow this bodhisattva's meditations, which I take refuge in three jewels. I lead all sentient beings to the state of liberations and state of enlightenment, and for this may I generate bodhicitta. So therefore, what he says is now, having taken refuge in three jewels, now I would like to generate bodhicitta. And the very purpose of my taking refuge in three jewels is to benefit all other sentient beings. To benefit all other sentient beings, I need to generate bodhicitta to gain a state of enlightenment. So this taking refuge in three jewels is also one of the very powerful practice of purifications. And then suddenly, when it comes to the practice of bodhicitta, it is said, he's always mentioned that practice of bodhicitta is becoming both purification and accumulation of merits.
dikta nyuma no jo yin se dikpa jo wala anda da kon shima tabe nibo to shete ni yabo na je res nibo to shi yabo je na je wena ente ta ma tu dikpa je mes.
So in the verse that it says that purifying, what it says here is now the clearing away the violations and reactive emotions. So therefore, if one purify one's negative deeds that one has accumulated in the past, if one engages in if one purifies this on the basis of application of four antidotes, which is the four purification practice of application of four antidotes, then there's no such negative deeds which can withstand with this practice of four antidotes, application of four antidotes.
다든지 마음으로 되겠잖아. 디바도 뉴머니 디바거든. 디바 다 자야거든. 이것도 사용하는 디바 자야거든. 소소 맞지? 다 뉴머세는 뉴머가 자야 돼. 다 디바도 뉴머니 뉴머 자야거든. 되겠잖아. 제자 투바 자와자. 대니 나서 내봐자. 냐바라샤라 쯩자신 모두라서 공부자스 되겠잖아. 되래.
So now next we move to verse 20. The discussion we have earlier is the discussions on purification of vile actions or the negative actions, right? Now the next we will be discussing on the reactive emotions, which is afflictions. How do we purify our afflictions? For that, the verse 20 talks about how do we purify our negative action, negative, negative thoughts and emotions. Here it says, endure patiently, seek learning, then dwell in the forest, make an effort to stabilize attention, measure on the fondness and so on. So the commentaries, in the commentary, this explanation will be found under the 9th chapter. The first, it emphasizes on importance of practicing patience. To have a proper practice of patience, one need to listen to the teachings carefully. So in order to have this practice meaningful and purposeful, or make an effective practice, then one should go in the forest or the quiet place where one can practice without interruptions. So then not only just learning and listening to the teachings, but whatever the teachings that one may have listened, one may have learned, and must be then should make an effort to stabilize one's attention, which means to meditate upon. Then this will then be followed by the meditation of the fondness and so on. So now first, it explains what is meant by practice of patience. So in speaking about patience, there are of three kinds. So the patience, the practice of patience are the accepting the hardships voluntarily and not retaliating the harm inflicted upon oneself by others, and 동해 단어가 있어가지고 so not retaliating the practice of not retaliating retaliating the harm inflicted upon oneself, and the practice of and the patience with regard to the phenomena.
Patience of
Phenomena. Sure, I don't think so. Sure, yes. We'll take questions here. If you have any questions.
Yes. Okay. So I've spent some years trying to purify all my many negativities, and it's like trying to swim up a waterfall. And my thought and concern is what happens at the time of death. If my mind happens to be calm at that time, then perhaps things will go well. But there's no telling what will happen at the time of death, and I certainly have enough negativities and afflictions that at that time, what arises might not be good, it might be bad. So what does one do in that case? One can no longer purify at the time of death. So what does one do? Do you get it?
So you are unable to purify your negativities at a time of one's death?
There are so many negativities
Yes.
that the negativities may arise at the time of death in spite of one's
Got it.
lifetime.
Yeah.
So what does one do then?
Okay. 대부분 자야려 다시 좀 배면은 다시 고 쌤 수수익 다간다 쌤도 고 녀모 시원 손데 쌤 샤디 벌어서 그 뒤에 시간 나가려고 수수리야 수수익이야 다지 자원변의 지금 류기 자원님보다 마의 자원님한테 리아 마주고에면은 지 이기 자원님보다 레어야 되게 시간 나가는데 되기로 봤어서 봐. 제가 그 시간 나갈 때 쓸래 되는데 시간 나갈 때인데 지금 이기 자원님한테 되면은 이기 레님한테 되면은 다 지금 되나야 거기 가서를 되고 자야서 지금 장도에 가고 싶지 않은데 맞아 생각해야 그 뮤직이 장면에 한 시간 나가고 지금 레디로 봤고 쌤 니모 시원 손들 봤어.
단데 엔디체상다에 대상다니 되게 비싸는 짓. 아버님도 레원을 붙이 가르쳐 잡으나 레원 잡으세요. 다 레원 잡도 가르나 아는 세지랑 이제 왜서 주마다니 로고 와서 저도는 상하게다니 레원이 전에 보여. 그러나 세지랑 이제 그러서 와래 주마다 로고 와서 세지마다 주마다 로고 와서 생들이 로고도 요대거든요. 제 되자다 control aja loss of loss of that so somebody Jimmy Charwa, so the logo is or Jazan, Saint John US or Tomato logo was some day to man, but so they say Ryan Shu Mare, logo to Mares. They Galona, Saint Ryan Shu Tawaina, and they take care of Marine. Motoda, Carso, say Chazareta, Shasha Rari, the Tomorrow is a logo to another, or Nibo than Tire. Tendumoso, Tomaso de Logo, but Sempre Raggy to Vesa in Ten, Marzo Condi, Tempena, and then Tomorrow was a tire, which was to a house of the station of Jeta, Cheria in the Never the Jetamaroto send Joa Tommy and Tanda Padre, Numonga Yoto, to also show a The name do Tamuzo, Carjago, Natan, you want to measure each other, Tatanamaranzo. Send you more you to show you have a harbor or just a harbor is number and so the Judaji at the kitchen already. Jazan, send Judaji. Jazan, when the treaty uses some David Log and the Naja out of the time, treaty uses some choose the Nambishon is actually choose the Juditan, Joab, Juditan. Just a carriage Juditan and send Juditan. Same kind of down the same kind of you to run but so upon and then cursor to look to run but so never so yes. And then same but says some to Joatangi, same Joatangi, so you know, just same Mando and do it, yes, same Aruba the Roma so yes, or just some tree is not the same Joatangi is some good you know also just send another new to show you in that the ring with the so send the job on it and then you tell Tom Tony, then you tell Tom Tony, you say I was to send you a very good Kakimare. Just on the Juday, I was to Tomato, send you a Chadero, just the name you tell some Tani, and then send you a Tani. And then Sanchari appointed Master to Ina, and was really going to take a so that Tandaba said to San and Tandaba so San to Chibani, Tandaba so San Joa Catchin Chita, San Joa Shirachins and never Mombo Chita. Just then you are so the quality with the kitchen set and never more you the shirley. I had the Madani, the quality in Joa and the kitchen.
So one thing that encourages us to engage in the practice of purification is to the verse, the one of a very powerful verse in the sutra by the Buddha himself, where it says, all this negative, all the affections or negative emotions or negative thoughts are advantageous. And the nature of mind is luminosity. The luminous, in other words, luminous. So what it really says here is now, this negative thoughts and emotions, regardless of how powerful they may be, they are all advantageous. They are not actually, our nature of our mind is not tainted with this negative thoughts and emotions. All the negative thoughts and emotions, the powerful negative thoughts and emotions, are all remaining on the surface of our nature of our mind. Because if our nature of mind is tainted by this negative thoughts and emotions, suddenly we will not be able to separate our nature of mind from those negative thoughts and emotions. But negative thoughts and emotions are said to be advantageous. So there's a chance that where we can actually eliminate those negative thoughts and emotions. So this can be done in a very constant manner. If one's practice becomes inconsistent, then at one time, practice and purify one's negative deeds. At the time, you may find again you are actually engaging in negative deeds and so on. This will happen because of inconsistency of one's practice. So become to not letting those negative thoughts and emotions take place again in one's mind. It doesn't not letting these negative thoughts and emotions control one's mind. The consistent practice is very important. Consistency of one's practice is very, very important. So, so at all time, right from the beginning of one's, one's beginning of one's day, let's take it as early morning, making sure that I will not let my mind remaining under the power of my negative deeds, my negative thoughts and emotions or the delusions. And this should be go all the way until you retire at night. So if we become a very conscious and become a very careful about not letting your mind become under the control of your negative thoughts and emotions in the morning, then later on after breakfast, and if you are not paying much attention to it, then our mind will again become under the control and the power of our negative thoughts and emotions. And this constant practice of familiarity is very, very important. So then here it says, uh, so then here, this is what we call what is meant by the practice of Dharma, what it says. When we speak about the practice of Dharma, the term Dharma itself is translated into Tibetan as a che, which means to modifying or the transforming. What is transforming? What is modifying here is to modify one's negative thoughts and emotions, or reversing one's negative thoughts and emotions. This is what is meant by the practice of Dharma. Practicing Dharma or the practitioner of Dharma doesn't really mean someone who reads the text, someone who understands very well about the text, someone who can explain thoroughly about the text. That's not actually practice of Dharma. The practice of Dharma must be based on your understanding, based on your studies. One should always constantly remaining in the practice of transforming one's mind, reversing one's thoughts and emotions. If one is able to do this, then one's state of mind will become, the positive state of mind will become predominant, and negative states of mind will be subsided or subdued. So, if one make an effort to really to habituate one's mind on that, again, this must be done on the basis based on reasonings. One should also find the reasonings, not just having a faith or just really capture some kind of your state of mind by the teachings, but just find a reason on that, based on reasonings. So this is how we transform our minds. If one is able to be able to remain on the constant purification of one's mind, constant modification of one's mind, then at the time of one's death, this negative thoughts and emotion will not predominate. It will not become a powerful to attack one's mind. So you will still remain on the process of purification your negative deeds and negative thoughts and emotions, even at the end of one's life.
제가 공리 되네. 가족이나 공리 때 때문에 진짜 상상하고 그런 줄 알았다. 가버려도 소소가 퇴배제 하고 은퇴배 소소 신주랑 강화제 소소 문제 가나 강도 신주제 분리로 지 이사서지 내려와 은퇴 잠지 단소소 은퇴 따라 이해서 양양하고 양양하고 그래 공리가 해야 되는 걸로 해서 또
Make a habit of engaging in practice, habit of transforming or habit of changing one's mind in a very kind of consistent manner. Just practicing at one time and then forgetting at other time is not going to help us. The reasoning is very important. Reasoning again.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? One more questions? We might take one more questions and then.
We'll miss your teachings for the next few weeks and your translations.
Oh, no, thank you. Dinda khaji jel dan jeme dinda ma khaji ji sungje me ta. That's all. Shall we do our dedication prayers?
Let's say the dedication prayer, starting at page 23, 24, continuing with auspicious wishes on page 28. Nagi jine sabe
Yavade tena roa gula gabeda Shabana jese rozan travayi Tebe nibore do saje jo
Saji Puti
Proje me dora Rera neje mide yibade Sanje jido me de goaye Proge nanda jena je baro Yana lama na ndame jeje pelano jeje Sadana je yude razone Gaje chabye koma yuzo Midala gande ataya me Bedrume sasu Tato ne juroje Jeje kansu pedan deva manu juvene Cereza teze jasoyi, Jabeze de pato te yoroji, Chachebana godo sambo te yande jende, Teta kunje jesu dagoji, Gewa de da tamjero tomo, Te son chibe gewa cheki, Noa gana chodo mabade, Dage give sawa dekwe, Sambo jeje rado waji.
네, 그래서 우리가 같이